Hey there, welcome to the Benchwarmers. You're here with Gabe and Jamie.
Hello,
talking
everybody.
Jews, talking sports.
That's right. We're here on this beautiful week, coming to you live on tape from Toronto.
Yeah,
and
finally starting to get nice out.
It's
And
fabulous. French Open's around the corner. The Champions League's around the corner. Baseball's in full swing, and the playoffs in hockey and basketball are getting lit.
Yeah, good golf time right now.
Great golf time.
We played a few weeks ago, and we're playing this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully the weather will be good, and we can channel our inner Ben Silverman and hit some birdies.
That's right. In a little personal Jewish sports news, Gabe, last weekend on the golf course, I hit my first birdie of my career.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you say the Shechianu?
I did not. But I did have a bit of a freak out and threw my club in the air and and my hat. And my brother-in-law was watching. It was just like, that was amazing. It was a 35-foot at least putt.
That's amazing.
From off the fringe. It was like, I will never make that again. It was up a hill and around a corner. It was amazing.
That's spectacular. And did it hit the center of or just kind of totally
No, it
pull
hit.
in?
It was like going fast and hit the stick and dropped.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
God bless these new golf rules.
Oh, yeah. So, getting a birdie on the 18th tee, that really brings you back for another round.
Absolutely. That's what it's for.
That's what keeps you coming back.
That's right. It's like the brisket on Passover. It's what keeps you doing it every year.
If you say so.
That's right.
So we're out to play Don Valley this weekend. It should be nice. Hopefully it doesn't thunderstorm on us too bad.
That's right. It should be a lot of fun. But it's a big week in sports, a big week in Jewish sports, and a big week in Canadian Jewish sports. As our mothership, the Canadian Jewish News, devoted a lot of the issue to something that is very important to us. And that is the issue of Jews in sports, or their issue of Jews in sports. That was talking about famous Canadian Jews in sports that are there before, they're now. People they've covered before, like Zach Hyman, or as we talked about with Jonathan Mayo, Sean Green's experience in Toronto, as well as some lesser-known ones. And I believe some of the stories have a personal connection to each one of us. Jamie, would you like to tell us about that?
Sure. So there was a profile on the CJN website that we'd encourage you to check out. Always great stories, and this week in particular, a lot of stories, as Gabe mentioned, focusing on Jews and sports. But there's a story on Jerry Sternberg, formerly of the Canadian Football League, a Jew of, I believe, Montreal or Toronto.
Do you think the Earl Grey would be okay with Jews hoisting his cup?
I don't think so, but I don't really know what his politics were. I know he
I
liked
have a
tea.
guess. I got to guess what
You
his
got a
politics
guess?
were. Yeah.
Not a friend of Weissman. Anyways, profile on Jerry Sternberg, who played in the CFL about 40, 50 years ago and actually won a Grey Cup and is now practicing as a lawyer in Toronto. And last year, I had a file with Mr. Sternberg. He's multidisciplinary practice, but this is a personal injury file. As you know, I'm an insurance defense lawyer.
Is he a partner? Is this firm called Sternberg?
I believe he's a sole practitioner.
Okay.
I remember it was just Jerry Sternberg Law. But he's a nice older gentleman. I met him one day. We had an examination for discovery, negotiated a settlement, and settled that file, so that was good. I had a pleasant relationship with him on that time. Didn't know about his CFL exploits at that time, but I wish I could have asked him about it.
Did explain all of the legal football metaphors he repeatedly used during the proceedings.
I don't remember him using any of those. I do remember him telling me to hurry up during my discovery at one point because he wanted it to be over.
There you go. If a normal trial has 4 witnesses, does Jerry Sternberg only call 3?
Is that because are you making a 4-3 reference?
Yeah, 4 downs in America, 3 downs in Canada.
That's good. Well, I'm sure his legal briefs are slightly larger and longer.
That's right. He uses paper that is 105 yards wide or 110 yards wide and 55 yards wide or whichever.
Yeah, we're really belaboring this metaphor. But great piece on him and how he went to law school in between a successful CFL career and transitioned to being a lawyer and having a successful career at that. So,
did he wear his Grey Cup ring?
I don't remember, but I didn't know that he was a football player at the time. I would have been interested to know if he has a Grey Cup ring or if they did that at the time and if he still has it and if he wears it.
If you want a ring in a professional sports event, not very many people do, but how often would you wear it?
I feel like it's a real Bush League move to wear the ring all the time because on the one hand, it's incredibly garish these days. You've seen pictures recently of World Series rings or Super Bowl rings, and it's hundreds and hundreds of diamonds, and it looks ridiculous. Once upon a time, they were more simple and I'm not going to say elegant or dignified, because it was still a ring celebrating a sports championship. And like, yeah, it was a little ridiculous, but it was more like the kind of piece of jewelry that you could wear every day. Now it's like you see these Super Bowl rings and it's like it would be hard to make a fist. It would be hard to like have it on your finger and have it next to your other fingers that like separating your hands or something like that. So I think now it's like it's a pretty bush league move to wear it all the time.
I think that's the point. I think I would wear mine every single time I had to wear a suit.
Okay,
Wedding,
I think that's a good rule.
Bar mitzvah, big presentation.
It depends. It depends how much notoriety you want. Because I think, first of all, everyone's going to see it. Especially one of these modern rings, like anything from the last 20 years. Yeah. You're going to see it and say, oh, you are this person. Like, I think you wear it if you want people to know that you are the guy who was, the backup linebacker on the Patriots in one of their Super Bowls.
Even if you're a guy selling beer at the stadium, oftentimes you get a ring.
No.
Oh,
really?
Absolutely.
I thought it was like trainers, like that kind of stuff.
It's everybody. If I remember correctly, when the Boston Red Sox won their championship in 2006, they made something like 1,100 rings and gave them to every person who was remotely involved in the
2004?
team. 2004, that's right. Interns, beer salesmen, everybody.
All right. I mean, maybe they weren't quite as decked out as the real ones they gave to the players, but maybe they were, cubic zirconium or something like that.
That's right.
Like you could give someone a ring that'd be worth more than what they make in a year.
Yeah.
Some of those guys.
Maybe they do. Or maybe they're just replicas. That's true. And the real rings go to the real players.
You remember there's that story a couple years ago of Kraft giving his ring to Putin accidentally?
Yeah.
And it was like Putin just said like, this is mine now. Like, I think Kraft intended it as like a loan or like,
look at this. Yeah, look at this. And, puts it in his pocket. And Kraft says, give it back. And Putin says, what are you talking about?
He's like, yeah, it's in the Hermitage. Like, it's gone. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't realize you wanted it back. And then I think Kraft had to like walk it back and be like, oh no, I did mean to give it to him.
Wow.
Like, something like that. It was, there's our Jewish sports connection there.
Yeah, it's something he and Trump have in common.
What? Giving things to Putin?
Yeah. There you go. Well, again, there's our Jewish connection.
No collusion.
Kraft. No, that's right. Robert Kraft, our sort of favorite pervert. I only say that because we've discussed him on the podcast before, but
maybe our most talked about pervert.
Our most talked about pervert.
Favorite. He seems to have gotten off, for failure of a better term. He seems to have had the charges against him withdrawn. It seems, and they're not.
Really?
I think withdrawn or they pled down or something. There was some. I didn't follow it as closely as I should have, but there was some issue with the search warrant. Rosa DiMano wrote like a incredibly backwards column in the Toronto Star about like him going to like rumpy pumpy rooms and stuff like that. It was so first of all, like it was so out of touch with like the way we generally think about sex work these days, and just like it was out of touch with like the way people use words these days. Like,
right.
I've enjoyed Rosie DiMano's columns. She's been a great sports writer for many years, but like when she goes into the general culture stuff, sometimes she's just so out of touch. It's unbelievable.
I think the law in Canada defines it as a body house. Like, and I don't mean body as in B-O-D-Y. I mean body as in B-A-W-D-Y.
Yeah, it might. I mean, there are massage parlors that are licensed in Toronto, and there's
full body massage parlors that are licensed in.
Anyways, I think we're getting off topic. The point is, Robert Kraft seems to be he's not having the tape released, which is probably his biggest concern, regardless of whether or not he gets charged or convicted of anything, a misdemeanor or something like that. It's not really going to affect him so much. But I'm sure he just wants the notoriety gone. And, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years his children sort of subtly encourage him to take more of a step back as he gets older and a little less predictable. So that's a Jewish sports owner that we can continue to watch and see how it goes with them.
Well, speaking of not necessarily Jewish sports owners, a classic of the soccer genre happened in Europe last week between two teams that our previous guest Dave Goss had on the podcast.
That's right. It was the second leg of the match between Tottenham Hotspur and Ajax, I'm now told it's pronounced. And
I believe that's correct.
For our listeners from outside of the Greater Toronto area, there's a suburb of Toronto called Ajax, spelt the same way as the Dutch soccer team and I assume city. And now every time I pass it on the road, I think it's pronounced Ajax, and I'm really worried that it's going to slip out sometime, and I'm going to ask somebody if we're in Ajax yet. Like, are we past Pickering? Are we in Ajax? And they're going to look at me like I'm from another planet.
Maybe that's just the Jewish way of pronouncing it from now on.
I don't think so. I think it's the Dutch way of pronouncing it.
Probably. So it was a really dramatic time between our two ostensibly, purportedly Jewish teams. Just as a reminder of what our guest said, Ajax in Amsterdam, they're very proud for having allegedly hid Jews during the Holocaust, whereas Tottenham had a lot of Jews living in Tottenham, or living in North London, where Tottenham is based, from the early 20th century out through today.
And continues to have a Jewish culture in it, whether or not it has so many Jewish fans still.
Absolutely.
So it was a 2-leg match, and
right.
Ajax won the first match.
They won it 1-0 by a goal by somebody named Van de Beek. I assume that's a last name, not Van de Beek.
Yeah, I assume it was the last name. It sounds very Dutch.
It sounds very Dutch.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the second game, an all-time classic, and 5 minutes in, De Ligt scored, putting Ajax up 2-0 in the combined game. And then in the 35th minute, Ziyech, who I don't think is Jewish, but his name could be. It's probably pronounced Ziyech.
We're not doing the best with the Dutch pronunciation here.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Scored and put Ajax up 3-0
on the aggregate.
On the combined score. And then a great miracle happened there in Amsterdam.
Sure. I don't think that's where the game was being played.
It was.
Was it?
Yes, at the Amsterdam Arena. A great miracle happened there, where in the 55th minute, Lucas Moura scored, making it 3-1.
And then at 59 minutes, he scored again. And then in extra time, at the 96th minute, Lucas Moura had a hat trick, scoring his third goal and tying the aggregate 3-3 for our non-soccer fan listeners. And I count myself among them sometimes. I believe away goals are the first tiebreaker.
That is correct. So because Tottenham scored 3 goals in Amsterdam and Ajax only scored 1 goal in London, they won 3-2. I think the appropriate Jewish metaphor would be the Maccabees only had enough oil to last 1 day, but it lasted 8, whereas there was only enough injury time to last for 5 minutes, but Tottenham had it last for 6, wherein Lucas Moura scored the goal.
Sure, I don't think this is exactly, rebelling against the Assyrianized Greeks that happened in the Hanukkah story, but still a little miracle that happened over there.
That's right.
Tottenham faces Liverpool, I think.
Liverpool
in
on
the Champions
June 1st.
Final. And it's a 1-game match?
It's a 1-game match. It's a single winner-take-all final. And we hope the Yids can take it, sort of out of loyalty to the arbitrary name.
And it's somewhere weird, right? It's in Greece, I think?
I think so. It's always at a neutral location.
Right, because it's planned as the Champions League final before they know who is actually playing it. So despite the fact that it's 2 British football teams that are, 250 miles apart? How far is Liverpool? Not so far from North London. Despite that, they're traveling all the way to Greece, and I assume bringing some rowdy fans with them.
That's right, bringing some Yids with them.
Yeah, I guess so. So go Tottenham, go Hotspur. We'll have to learn some Tottenham cheers, I guess.
That's right.
Winning the Champions League is it the biggest deal? Is it bigger than winning the Premiership? Or is winning the Premiership?
I think it is. No, I think winning the Champions League is the biggest deal.
Does Tottenham have a shot at winning the Premiership this year?
No. The Premiership is settled. Manchester City won.
Okay. Back to more domestic matters. Canadian Jewish News also published some articles highlighting some great Canadian Jewish athletes, and specifically some Canadian Jewish hockey players. Some of them who we've already discussed on the podcast, and we encourage you to check out those articles. We thought we'd take an opportunity here to focus on some up-and-coming guys. This is the spring and summer, and this is draft season. We had the NBA draft lottery last week. We had the NFL draft just a few weeks ago.
So here's our prospect watch for the last week of May for draft season.
Yeah, basketball and baseball drafts are coming up soon. The hockey draft is in
July.
So also coming up soon. So let's take it back to the first draft that happened recently. Gabe, there was, to my knowledge, and I did some digging on all the players who were drafted, there was at least one Jewish player drafted in the NFL draft. Now, there was one big Mike Jacobs All-Star, of course, a non-Jew with a Jewish-sounding name, and that would be the similarly named Josh Jacobs, running back from Alabama, drafted in the first round.
Josh Jacobs from Alabama.
Yeah, okay. He's not Jewish as far as we know, but definitely a Mike Jacobs All-Star.
Yep, absolutely.
A Tariq Cohen All-Star.
That's right.
Of a certain kind. But John Kaminsky, drafted in the 4th round by the Atlanta Falcons, his defensive end, to my understanding, is Jewish.
Is he a new beefy boy chick if he's a defensive end?
Yeah, he's a big guy. Came out of College Charleston, I believe.
A lot of Jews in Charleston. Oldest synagogue in America.
And I don't really know what his affiliation with Judaism is, but I did find an Instagram post of him attending a Passover Seder, so that's something. His last name is Kaminsky, spelled Cominsky.
Ooh.
And obviously there's a Kaminsky in the NBA, Frank Kaminsky, who is not Jewish. So I know there are non-Jewish Kaminskys. I'm not sure what exactly the origin of it is. I assume people from a town called Cayman or something approximate to that. Yep. But John Kaminsky, we'll wish him well, and we'll keep an eye on him. While we're on the NFL topic, we haven't actually talked about the other most popular, I would say, Jewish NFL player at the time, or the most important Jewish NFL player at the time at the moment, right, who's recently been in the news, and that's Josh Rosen.
That's right. The chosen Rosen himself has been traded to the. He went a little early. Most people go there in their 60s, but Josh Rosen has gone to Miami in his early 20s.
Well, he was already in Arizona, which is a good snowbird destination.
That's true.
So going to Miami, I feel like that's just, you had enough of the dry heat and you want the wet heat. But yeah, traded to Miami sort of unceremoniously. He was drafted in the first round by Arizona last year, but then this year with the number 1 pick, they picked Kyler Murray.
Not a Jew.
Not a Jew, as far as we know, but also a baseball player, but decided to play football. And they shipped Rosen away. So best wishes to him. I think he's got a great shot in Miami.
Yep.
I think
he's going to start. He's going to play a lot.
I think it's nice that he's in an area that has a huge Jewish community. It
Absolutely.
has a huge Jewish community as well that's there in the fall and winter.
Yep.
Lots of Jews in Toronto and other parts of the Northeast head down to Miami for the year or for the winter.
And they'll cheer on the chosen Rosen.
Yeah, I think he's got a great shot to be a huge fan favorite. It didn't work out in Arizona, and I don't think that's his fault necessarily, given the team they had there. Yeah. So I think he's got a great shot in Miami, and wish him well. He should start. We've talked about in the past. He's had some people question his commitment to football because he's interested in other things, and he's smart enough to know what's going on outside of the football world. But honestly, the idea that has any effect on his ability to be a standout quarterback is ridiculous.
Absolutely. We talked about earlier, he's a man who faces a lot of thinly veiled anti-Semitism. He is talked about he was criticized for being too smart, for being too outspoken, for being too involved. Which kind of goes against, as we talked about earlier with Jonathan Mayo and amongst ourselves, the shut up and play idea that is especially prevalent in football and not particularly known in the Jewish community. We like to talk and we like to think, and he was sort of criticized for that, but he's been nothing but classy and nothing but forward throughout his time in Phoenix.
Yeah, and good luck to him in Miami. Hopefully a more welcoming environment, and hopefully one with less dog whistle anti-Semitism.
That's right.
Moving on to hockey, Gabe. There's a few Jewish prospects coming into the NHL soon, or into the draft soon.
That's right, including a surprising one. Perhaps what is the opposite of a Mike Jacobs All-Star, do you think?
Well, I think this person might get the name. It might be a Kevin Youkilis All-Star, because Greek last name, Greek Jewish background. I don't know that anyone knew Kevin Youkilis is Jewish
until he just came out and said it.
I don't think anyone intuited that he was Jewish the way you might have with a Ryan Braun, for example.
Right.
Yes.
So
a real Kevin Youkilis All-Star.
We were happy to I don't know about announce, but we're happy to report that presumptive number 1 overall pick in the upcoming NHL draft, Jack Hughes, is Jewish.
I've never heard of a more Irish-sounding name. It's great. His mom's Jewish. His older brother, Quinn, is also a hockey player. He was drafted in the first round by somebody last year. You can fill me in. To our listeners out there, I don't follow hockey that closely, to be honest. I have a passing understanding of it, and I've become a Vegas Golden Knights fan. And it's difficult to watch all their games because they play in the West Coast.
He was drafted by Vancouver 7th overall last year.
All right. So Quinn Hughes should probably, I think he played a few games this year, should have a shot in the future.
That's right.
With the Nucks.
And what's notable about our podcast is Jack Hughes, even though he is nominally an American, the child of a woman named Ellen Weinberg Hughes, who was a former world champion hockey player herself.
Wow, second generation.
That's right. He was raised in Toronto.
Wow.
As even though he is, like we said, born in the States but raised in Toronto, so the Canadian Jewish News has a lot of interest in the success of this young man.
Future Canadian Jewish News profilee Jack Hughes, and also Quinn Hughes.
And potentially future guests on this podcast. Well,
let's hope so.
Two mentions can dream.
Yeah. Also, another big hockey prospect, Gabe, coming out of Europe. You were telling me about before.
Andrei Burakovsky. He's been in the NHL for about 4 or 5 years, including won a Stanley Cup.
But all right, fine, prospect, whatever. I don't know.
He's 25, and we've recently learned that he is Jewish.
Wow, that's great.
From Sweden. His parents were Russian Jews, and they raised him in Sweden, played in the NHL, his father did, for the Ottawa Senators, and now, after being raised in Malmo, I believe, is living in Washington and presumably attending some congressional temple.
Did you watch this last season of Broad City?
I did not.
So there's an episode where Ilana does like one of those 23andMe tests and like finds some ancestors out there. And one of them is like her 16th cousin, who's a Holocaust survivor, played by Jerry Adler, a.k.a. Hesh Rabkin from The Sopranos.
That's right.
He's very old now. I think he's in his 90s. He still looks very good, but he was great. He was hilarious. And he's sort of like a rascally older guy, and they sneak him out of his retirement home, and they lose him in New York. And it turns out that, and this is actually a very touching part of the show, is that whenever he escapes from the retirement home, he goes to IKEA, because it reminds him of Sweden and the Swedes who sheltered him during the Holocaust.
The Raoul Wallenbergs and such.
It's actually a very touching moment.
Very touching.
It's very nice.
So there's a long history of Swedish Judaism for which Andrei Burakovsky is a nice part of.
Yeah, not a lot of Jewish Andres, but always glad to have him.
Absolutely. Would you call him a Jack Hughes All-Star? Or a Kevin Youkilis All-Star?
I feel like Burakovsky sounds more Jewish, and also like as much as we...
It is Burakovsky with a Y as well.
As much as we're familiar with like Jewish naming culture and naming rituals, or, just the kinds of last names that Jews tend to have in this part of the world, I feel like that also exists in other parts of the world where it's like, I don't think of certain things as being a Jewish last name, but if you're in Russia, it's like, of course that's Jewish.
Right.
Like no Russian would possibly have that name. And same with like lots of Sephardi names where it's like, of course, everybody with that name for the last 600 years has been known as a Jew, and like it would be like someone named Goldberg,
right? From the Ashkenazi community. That's an interesting thought. Yeah. I think of the two Mexican Jews relevant to our lives. Rowdy Tellez being a notable one.
I don't know.
Both his parents are Jewish. His father named Tellez from Mexico. His mother named Bernick from California. And let's not forget about lead singer of Rage Against the Machine, Zach De La Rocha, also Jewish, also from Mexico. Absolutely.
No idea. Anyway, so who knows if their names are as Jewish as your Silvers and Goldsteins?
I think we're going to assume they are.
Yeah. Well, here's a kid with a quite the Jewish name on both sides. A Major League Baseball draft prospect, Josh Wolf, probably going to get drafted in the first or second round, and as is the nature in the baseball draft, we might not see some of these guys for a couple of years or at all, depending on how they progress in the minors, but we wish him well, and we'll keep a focus on him in the future and see how he gets drafted this summer. MLB draft, I believe, is the end of June or beginning the end of June, and we'll see how he gets drafted and update you on that. In terms of other young guys to keep a focus on, Gabe, in the news, the French Open's starting this Sunday, I believe.
That's right. Denis Shapovalov, our favorite Toronto Jewish player, as well as an Argentinian, Diego Schwartzman.
Yeah, Schwartzman's the number 18 seed. Shapo is the number 21 seed.
Do you think if Diego Schwartzman was from, say, New York, his name would be John Schwartz? Jack Schwartz?
No, Diego is actually James.
James Schwartz. Jamie Schwartz.
Yeah.
He is Jamie Schwartz.
Jamie Schwartzman sounds a little more Jewish, but again, Diego is not so necessarily not Jewish.
Well, we wish the both of them luck, and maybe on our next episode we'll be talking about the fourth round matchup of the Jewish Bowl after Schwartzman and Shapovalov meet each other. But that's our prospect watch for today. We're going to take a break and come back with
some
our
Jewish
main
food
story
news
of the day. Some Jewish food news. Let's say the Birkat Hamazon and get on with it.
Every time you try and do something religious, I feel like you're searching for it, like in the back of your head.
Very deeply.
It's so vaguely like relevant to your life. So,
well, I'm trying quite hard not to rely on the Yiddish crutch.
Yeah.
We've had some feedback that we might be getting a little too bagely in some parts of this podcast.
Yeah, some of us.
But maybe a little too flary. But we're going to want to, we're trying to keep the Yiddish going. We know people love it. At least we know of one listener who's written to us about learning Yiddish through this show.
Wow.
So let's keep it going.
I want to tell everybody that upcoming this Sunday, May 26th, we are having a launch party for the CJN Podcast Network, both us and the Canadian Jewish Schmooze.
Featuring our producer,
Alex Rose, and our executive producer, Michael Freeman. And we're having a Lag BaOmer style bonfire at
That's right.
Christy Pitts.
Will be the 36th counted day of the Omer.
So we're going to have a bonfire if Michael can figure out how to organize that and get the wood and all that. It's at Christy Pitts, at the fire pits that are sort of on the west side of the park.
And any listener is welcome.
and even non-listeners, if you can find out about it. There'll be snacks, and probably that's it. A fire.
Yeah.
We'll have things to do and people to talk to. And we'd love to see you out there. It starts at 5 p.m. Again, Sunday, May 26th. There's a Facebook event and a event page on the Canadian Jewish News website.
So I got a question for you, Jamie.
Go for it.
What would you say the percentage of NFL stadiums you think, out of 32, how many of them do you think you can get kosher food at?
Well, first of all, I believe there's 31 NFL stadiums because 2 of the teams play at Giant Stadium.
Sure. 31 teams.
Stadiums.
32 teams.
31 stadiums.
31 stadiums.
Yeah.
How many of them do you believe serve kosher food?
So I would guess, based on population distribution in cities that have reasonable sized Jewish communities, in NFL cities, I would guess, say, 15 of 31. How's that?
You're a little high. And it's of 32. I'm going by teams.
Fine.
32. There are 8 teams that serve kosher food at their stadiums.
Can I guess which ones they are?
Yeah, let's see if you can guess. It was just NFL.
Well, so 8 teams.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say the Jets and the Giants are one.
That's your first
sure.
2.
Okay, first 2. The Dolphins.
The Dolphins are another one. Josh Rosen.
Okay. The Rams.
No. Huh. There is no kosher food in a Los Angeles stadium.
Wow. Okay, well, then I think probably some of the other East Coast ones. Philly.
Philly is correct.
Detroit.
Detroit is correct.
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is a no-no.
Chicago.
Chicago, yes. Got 2 more. Same city, different teams. There's your hint.
2 more, same city, different teams. What's the other?
5, 4,
NFL
3.
Oh, I don't know. Who is it?
Baltimore and Washington.
That's not the same city.
Oh, it's close enough.
All right, whatever. I'm surprised Kansas City's not up there. St. Louis.
So
St. Louis doesn't have a team anymore. Sorry.
They don't have a team. That's right.
Atlanta, I would think that new big stadium has so much of everything. You'd think it would have some kosher food.
However, both Kansas City and St. Louis, their baseball teams serve kosher food.
Oh, that's nice.
What's really interesting, and I think probably a sign of some sort of hidden anti-Semitism, is that there are a number of arenas, Staples Center in Los Angeles in particular,
sure,
that only serve kosher food in the luxury boxes, yet there is no kosher stand in which to buy food in the general concourse.
Well, you got to play to your audience sometimes. I don't know if that's hidden anti-Semitism. I think that's just responding to customer taste. And I think some of those places...
Is it, or is it just an assumption they make?
Well, maybe they feel like they need to cater to the luxury level people at a higher level. I mean, some of those places you can only get a prime rib or like a carved roast beef sandwich in the luxury boxes too. That's not like
it's true.
That's just based on who actually demands that sort of thing.
So what's really interesting I found while researching this is there are a number of stadiums, about a third in each league, that somewhere between a quarter and a third in each league that are certified kosher.
Yeah.
It's published, the name of the rabbi, you can get it, the name of the organization, where to get it. However, what there aren't very many of, there are a lot of other places that are uncertified to get kosher. So, I don't know, that's the Los Angeles Dodgers, for example. They serve kosher hot dogs.
Sure.
They're totally available. The Los Angeles Angels across town serve available Hebrew National kosher beef hot dogs.
So they
are not certified by any authoritative board.
So they have a Hebrew National hot dog that they'll put on the grill for you, or more likely microwave or something like that. But
that's right.
No one's actually overseeing their food services and making sure it's kosher.
That's right. There's no mashgiach involved to take part in this.
They still have, in the Toronto Stadium, they still have Old Spadina Road? Is that
Old Spadina Road, that's right.
The concession?
Ye Old Spadina. There's now an Old Spadina in the cheap seats. There used to be none available. And a scheme that many enterprising young Jews would run in order to get down to the lower level is you just say to the security guard waiting, I'm upstairs, but I'm going to grab a kosher hot dog. I keep kosher, got to get a hot dog. And then they'll let you into the expensive seats in the lower concourse that your ticket doesn't get you into. And you're able to go get this. One place you can't pull this scheme off, Yankee Stadium. They've got a kosher food stand on every single level of the stadium.
Well, they know their audience.
As does Citi Field. A number of stadiums also on their website will let you bring in kosher food.
Right.
Chicago Cubs, for example, will let you bring in kosher food.
Even though in the National League, you're typically not allowed to bring in outside food.
That's right. So,
although in the American League, you are. So anyone in an American League city, if you don't know this trick, and I say it explicitly for the Blue Jays, where they're as lax as they possibly could be, bring in outside food.
We've been to a Yankees game. You could bring in a sealed bottle of Coke and drink it at your seat. At Yankee Stadium.
At Yankee Stadium.
That's right.
Yeah. We went to Yankees games, and we had quite the food adventure in New York the weekend that we were on vacation, that we were on a trip there. And I don't remember bringing anything into Yankee Stadium. I do remember spending a while trying to find the one of the few. For our listeners out there who don't know, I'm a vegetarian, so kosher food is not my major concern. But I was able to find the one place in Yankee Stadium that serves like an eggplant Parmesan sandwich, and it was pretty good. It was like $10. It was definitely overpriced,
Right.
and it was small. It was like sort of like on a hamburger
And
bun.
presumably that's kosher, but not necessarily certified.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of kosher Jews have always sort of relied, or these days rely on vegetarianism as like
That's right.
a way to make sure that what they're eating is kosher style at the
Yep.
very least, and they're willing to break a rule or two, or bend a rule if they're going to a baseball game.
Well, what's really interesting is if you want to talk about rule bending, the Boston Red Sox have actually eliminated the need for rule bending in that they have certified kosher food. They have mozzarella sticks. They have hot dogs. They have kosher pizza.
Sure.
But without the need of certified kosher food handlers, they have 2 vending machines that are blessed by the local Mashiach. A dairy vending machine from which you can buy mozzarella sticks, and a meat vending machine from which you can buy your kosher Fenway Franks.
That's very smart. I mean, eliminate the need, but make it available to people. All these things are, let's be honest, a way for the baseball teams or football teams, whatever team, to make some money. I mean,
But by catering to their fans.
of course, but concessions are a huge way that teams make money.
Absolutely.
I've always felt like a smart, thrifty Jays fan when I show up to a game with a $6 ticket and bring in a pizza I bought on the outside world, and I don't know that they're making a lot of money off me, and I get a free Coke from the signing up to be a designated driver.
That's right.
And just live off that. So these teams rely on concessions, to be honest. I mean, there's a reason why things are overpriced. It's a big part of what they get people in the door for, and it's a big part of what the stadium takes home as well.
Well, a number of places, Staples Center being one of them, for example, in Los Angeles, which, as we said earlier, only has kosher food in the luxury areas, as well. Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City is another one of those. They don't have necessarily kosher food inside, but them, as to the Staples Center, has strictly kosher food trucks that stand outside the stadium and let people buy food, and then they can bring it into the stadium.
This sounds like a Calvin Trillin article waiting to be written.
It absolutely does. Looking for the best food truck food in
best
in
kosher
baseball.
food in Kansas City, his hometown.
Yeah, I think I read that book when I was in bar mitzvah school.
That's what feeding a yen is about.
Exactly, the best kosher food in Kansas City. It goes with the Chosen and Yentl and all those books.
This is very like niche area Calvin Trillin humor. But I feel like there's a good overlap between the people who listen to this podcast and people who read The New Yorker and care about The New Yorker's food writing. And I'm speaking specifically about members of both of our families here. So I hope they appreciate our Calvin Trillin-based humor.
That's right.
We like to think of ourselves as the fourth part of the Tummy Trilogy. Again, deep cut jokes. If you don't understand these, don't feel like you've done anything wrong.
No, of course. There is, interestingly, in Kansas City, an all-kosher barbecue truck. Kansas City is famous for its barbecue, and at the ballpark, you can get the all-kosher barbecue truck outside in the parking lot, bring it into the stadium.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, Kansas City barbecue is known for its brisket. As a vegetarian, it's amazing that I know this, but on a friend's bachelor party, we went to a Kansas City barbecue contest.
Where?
In Chicago.
In Chicago, wow.
And I ate a lot of cornbread and not much else. I think some coleslaw. They seem to enjoy it. Anyways, but Kansas City barbecue's brisket, so it makes sense it could be kosher.
They have a lot of kosher. There's
other barbecues more pork-based often.
That's right, and often the sauces usually have some meat in them, and they'll have a lot of the fat drippings of pig or beef. But this is a kosher barbecue food truck.
That's nice.
It's very impressive. So ultimately, the league with the highest penetration of kosherness is baseball. It's got 15 stadiums, actually 14 and a half. The Atlanta Braves only serve kosher food on Jewish Heritage Night, which we talked about earlier, and they do 4 of them a year where kosher food is available. As far as I can tell, they're not on Friday nights, which would be sort of the Mike Jacobs t-shirt moment of kosher food. But you can get kosher food 4 nights a year. The Chicago Cubs used to have 4 nights a year. They've now opened, bless you, a certified kosher hot dog stand. Interestingly, there are a couple of cities that have kosher food in each one of their sports. Toronto is one of them. We've got Old Spadina.
I believe that's Larry Tannenbaum's influence right there.
That's right. We've got
Tannenbaum and Godfrey made that happen.
Those are the owner and former president of our teams. We've got Old Spadina at the Skydomes and the Bay Street Deli.
Oh, Bay Street Deli.
At Leafs and Raptors games. As well, everywhere in New York has multiple kosher stands.
Makes sense.
Said not all of LA, as we learned earlier. Stan Kroenke, not Jewish.
Right.
But
is there kosher food at Barclays? There must be.
There is. There's kosher food in New York.
I don't think there being
and
a lot
at
of
Madison
Jewish,
Square Garden.
I don't think of there being a lot of Jewish Nets fans, but there must be some.
Interestingly, I noticed this when I was there in the team store at Barclays Center for the New York Nets, or the New Jersey Nets. It's not 1975.
The Brooklyn Nets.
The Brooklyn Nets, as they are now. That's right. You have all of Brooklyn. So they kind of have these photos, these black and white photos, all over the store, kind of in a proscenium around the top of it, with people who are in Brooklyn. They've got young black guys with low hats. They've got old Asian women smiling, wearing Nets jerseys. And they've got like a lot of Hasids.
Nice.
Black and white photos of Hasidic people. And, your Woody Allen, Nebuchadnezzar types.
Sure.
What Grammy Hall would call a real Jew wearing a Brooklyn Nets hat. To finish our story, we've got baseball at 15 stadiums, or 14 and a half. The NBA and the NHL, most of which share stadiums, have 11.
Sure.
And football bringing up the rear with only 8 kosher options.
Well, not the best options for everyone, but there's always choices there, and hopefully you can at least finagle your way into bringing some outside kosher food if you need it.
That's right. Good Yiddish.
You
could schnorr your way into a hot dog somewhere.
What's the ranking of Jewish type foods that you think are good stadium foods? I mean, I think a kosher hot dog.
I think a kosher hot dog's probably number one. Yeah. Cheese pizza. Also available a lot of stadiums.
I know pizza is very popular at stadiums. I feel like because they can just pump it out and kids like it, but I don't really feel like it's such a stadium food.
So the vast majority of kosher food is these kosher hot dogs, especially the unsupervised, kind of unsanctioned ones. But at least at Old Spadina in Toronto, you can get a knish.
Right.
You can get a kreplach.
Sure.
And latkes. They serve latkes at a lot of this, latkes and sour cream to dunk in.
Right.
They're easy to make, easy to fry.
Here's a take. You know what should be more popular game day fare? Middle Eastern food. Make a wrap. Make a pita.
Yeah.
Make a falafel. Make a shawarma. People would love that. Like, it's very hot dog-like in terms of its shape.
That's true.
Which I think makes it easy to carry and eat, like, at your seat. Like, anything, I think you want something where you don't need a plate.
Do you think you and I could tailgate somewhere with a big laffa oven where one of us is, like, slapping dough on the table and kind of throwing it onto the...
Let's see how those slaps turn up on the podcast.
And sort of pass it through the oven and then get it out on the other side with shawarma just sort of screaming at one another.
I would hope that there is like a community of Arab Americans in Dearborn, Michigan who like tailgate Michigan or Michigan State games and have a big laffa oven or some other pita oven.
The Detroit Lions have both kosher and halal food.
That makes sense.
Most of the
Muslim
same
community outside of Detroit.
At their football park.
Yeah,
as well
Fort
the Tigers have at Comerica nearby. But I think laffa and shawarma is a very good idea. Falafel. Do you think you just get falafel on a bed of fries? Just like three balls.
But again,
right
I think the hot dog's iconic status is it is the rare food that you can just stand up and eat, like without having to think about it. You don't need a plate. No one eats a hot dog with a fork and knife except for maybe Danny Tartable.
Yes.
So,
but you find it's interesting. Vienna beef hot dogs, famously known as the Cubs dog or the Dodger dog, and Fenway Franks, which are another type of hot dog. None of those are kosher. So the kosher hot dog is separate from your iconic baseball hot dogs.
I assume the Vienna beef is 100% beef, isn't it?
I think it is.
So I guess it's just not kosher
not
beef.
certified.
I mean, some hot dogs have pork in them.
That's right.
Chicken or whatever. That's a concern. But I mean, I think those are the top Jewish foods that would be good stadium foods. Like I feel like latkes might be a little more onerous.
Kishka.
Kishka, maybe not.
Maybe kishka is essentially a sausage.
Yeah, I guess. I feel like a knish is good. It's in the hot dog vein of just like something you can eat standing up.
That's right.
Quick food.
Yeah, that's true. Any sort of dumpling, I'm sure you can get like a pierogi, a kosher pierogi type thing in some places.
But again, more fork and knife.
That's true.
Like I hate having to put something on my knees and eat it with a fork and knife at a baseball game. I want to just hold it in my hand, which pizza is good for. I take back anything negative I said about pizza. You are my true love. So
yes, and I'm sure pizza always loves you back.
Let's hope so.
Yes. So with that, that's another banging week from the Benchwarmers.
Thanks for joining us. And again, we really hope you can join us on Sunday, May 26th at Christie Pitts. Hopefully this episode is out by then.
That's right. For our live appearance, Benchwarmers wants to thank again the CJN Podcast Network, as well as the guy who produces our show most of the time, Alex Rose.
Well, he's still going to produce this one. He's just not here in the room today.
That's right. As well as our supervising producer, Michael Freeman, who once again are the hosts of the Canadian Jewish Schmooze, our
sister podcast,
our sisterhood podcast, and sort of the shul sisterhood type thing.
Sure. Our Hadessa group
member that's
podcast.
Right. Perhaps all four of us will go to a mikvah one day. We're going to work to get the CJN Podcast Network to a minyan. We're not quite there yet, but we're working on it. Perhaps come with your pitches on Friday or on Sunday, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, sounds good. Always looking for more members here on the CJN website, on the CJN Podcast Network. All the articles we mentioned earlier can be found on the CJN website. As always, please like and subscribe to our podcast. Please follow us on Twitters at Benchwarmers, and feel free to reach out. We're always happy to have your feedback.
That's right. Have a great day.
Thanks.